All right, everybody, welcome to Musings with Morales. It's another exciting evening with a couple, one new guest and one face that you all will remember, Justin Pham. This is Michael Morales, and happy to be with you this evening. Just want to lament a little bit, and true to the fashion of musings, put a little thought into why we do this in the first place. And I just got to say, I'm super thankful that we started this podcast over a year and a half ago. I've met so many interesting people. I've been inspired. I've been educated, and I can truly say I'm a different person as a result of the people that I've met. In true fashion of the podcast, we really focus a lot on health, wealth, sometimes illness, sometimes treatment, and I want to share something a little bit personal with you all. I've worked in the nephrology dialysis industry for 25 years, and I've seen a lot of people that, in some cases, are unprepared for what they're facing. They are faced with an illness that requires a lot of angles to disease management, to treatment. One of those angles is to focus on nutrition, on their diet. And, for so many of us, food is a massive part of who we are, how we identify, how we socialize. We might eat when we're depressed, we might eat when we're happy, we might not eat when we're depressed or happy. So when we talk about diet, we've all got one, and I can say I've got one. Uh, Beginning of the year, I came up with some lab tests that said I had high cholesterol, and for the last 3 months, well, 4 months now, I've been making gradual changes to the diet to really work on those blood values. Doctor was prepared to put me on medications, and we had a heart-to-heart conversation. And my doctor told me that, hey, do the things that you can do, and let's test you in a quarter. I'm happy to say that I'm still without going on medication. Looking at the industry that I've worked in over the last 25 years, most people face the same sort of conversation of we need to make some changes. And sometimes they're not so gradual, they can be very drastic in some cases. So I've got two guests today. One I'm going to call a co host because he's been with us so many times and you guys know him very well. So when I bring up the screen, you'll recognize him from some of the episodes. The If you attended the art show in the beginning of March to kick off National Kidney Month, you'll recognize him. And I remember him saying that he felt vulnerable because he was up on so many pictures with his stellar physique, on canvas. Um, Second guest is somebody that is working to empower people. Uh, I think through education, and he's going to share a little bit about the education, but also through direct access to meals and diet plans that address specific illness. So let me bring up my two guests. We have Justin Pham and Andy Sartori. Andy, did I butcher your name?
That was pretty good.
All right, great, great.
Good at A minus.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the podcast, Andy, and welcome back, Justin. We have a topic that I think, a good synergy here in talking about meals. But, something I just want to share a little bit about these two that I know so far and then let them tell their stories. But uh, we got three entrepreneurs on the screen. And I really admire you guys for that. I know Justin's story, heard a little bit about Andy's story, and it's just really interesting when you meet people that are able to take passion and knowledge and apply it to being, self-made, bootstrapping, bringing themselves to a point where they can help people with their tools. So let's start with Justin and get a little bit of a briefing on where you've been, Justin. It's been a little while since you've been on the podcast, and I've been watching you on social media doing a lot of new stuff. So tell us what's going on, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to be back. Obviously, back on your platform here, which I'm always grateful to be on here. For the people that kind of already know me, I've been kind of some of the new stuff I've been dabbling in is obviously getting back into my, being more active, more than just working out and going to the gym. And I think for me, I've been putting a lot more of martial arts into my act being active, just working out, kind of gets a little boring. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like especially with dialysis, you got to really watch out for, certain kind of workouts. And so I think in order
Yeah,
to kind of switch things up, make it more fun, and it also it's just good for meeting people as well and being social is doing martial arts. I've been
yeah,
doing a lot of kickboxing and Muay Thai,
nice.
and I think just adding that just in my daily life it's kind of like a hug. It's like your new piece. So doing that is great. So that's pretty much the newest thing I've been doing lately. Everything else has been kind of the same, just managing and juggling my peritoneal dialysis, and pretty much just always adding and stacking new things and keeping myself busy. And I think that's kind of what is the hack of being able to withstand all this medical and health stuff.
Yeah, no, I think that's not just from a physical perspective, right, but from the mental perspective as well. Mental health is important as well. And
Hmm.
when I hear what you're saying about um, the hack, martial arts is a great one because it preaches discipline, right? And that's really
Hmm.
needed for health as well.
Exactly.
Andy,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about yourself. First time on the podcast. Somebody reached out to us recently from your team. I guess they saw some of the episodes, some of the guests we've had, and said you really got to meet Andy and hear what he's doing with Meal Pro. Is that correct? That's the name of your company.
Correct. Yeah, and it's great to be with you, first of all. And yeah, so the main mission of Meal Pro is just to help people with clinical nutrition compliance
Mm,
by sending prepackaged meals. So really, what we are is we're like a team of chefs. I mean, we have a kitchen. That's what our office looks like. It's a big commercial kitchen, and we have nephrologists that kind of guide us in how we should make meals for renal failure, and we put the two together, and that's how we kind of provide value to people with renal failure, where it's not just like you're going to a party and you're nobody thought about the person that has renal failure, and there's nothing on the table for you.
mm,
A lot of times in restaurants, the population really feels neglected, and they feel like nobody's really made food for them, and we're really changing that with eating with a purpose. That's our motto, is Meal Pro, eating with purpose, and the purpose being kidney health. So that's really what we focus on. And yeah, we differentiate between different stages of renal failure. So in stage 3, we keep the food is low protein,
yeah.
and then in stage 5, it'd be very high protein.
When you
uh,
say low protein in stage three, does it hit like plant based more versus like the animal based or high biological value, low biological
Yeah,
in protein?
definitely. Yeah, we have plant-based meals in stage 3. We do.
Yeah,
And when we have protein, we'll have 2 ounces of protein. So what I've learned is always in moderation.
yeah.
If we feel like we really need to indulge, you can, indulge in moderation. So there's 2 ounces of protein in stage 3, whereas in dialysis, it'd be 6 ounces.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Might double the load, huh? So Andy, you're a young guy. You just shared with us you and Justin are the same age, and I won't give that away, but young 30s. What brought you here? I mean, renal meal planning, differentiating between stages. I have seen your website. There's a lot of other types of meal planning there. What brought all this on?
Well, so I started with Meal Pro. Really started for like a fitness food for fitness, and
Okay.
that's where the eating with purpose came in. And it was, I'm mindful about what I eat because of my health. And then as time went on, it progressed and it became oh, I'm mindful about what I eat for some other conditions.
Yeah.
And the catalyst for this was when a university approached me and says, "Hey, can you make food for our clinical trial?" And I said, "Okay, well, I'm open to it. Tell me more about your clinical trial." And that trial was about women with interstitial cystitis. So it was an inflammatory condition.
Yeah.
So eating with purpose for them meant removing anything inflammatory, like tomatoes are out the window, lemons are out,
Oh gosh.
anything acidic is out.
That's tough for
Um,
me.
yeah, it was real tough, and that was the biggest challenge. Is like, hey, you know what? Can these people would that really help improve their condition if we give them the diet that they can adhere to?
Hmm.
And the way we do that is really through prepackaged meals. So we sent 10 ladies all the meals to Idaho. They're all based in Idaho, and so we sent them a box of meals every week, and it would have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and they would just eat the meals. And then they had another group of ladies, 10 more ladies, that would just eat the regular diet. And the trial went on for 10 weeks. So for 10 weeks, they had people on this control diet
Hmm.
and 10 people on this other diet, and they recorded results. Then we went 2 weeks off. We took a break for 2 weeks, and then the groups swapped. So the people that were the control now became the other type of diet.
Yeah.
So they reversed the study, and so the clinical paper was published, and it turns out that there really was an impact on their condition based on the diet that they were consuming, and it was substantial.
Mm.
And so I thought, okay, well, what other conditions would request or would it would make sense for them to have a very specific prepackaged diet. And so, of course, renal health was one of them. And so, with the same kind of approach towards the science backed aspect of nutrition, so it's not bro science, it's not just something you heard,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's actually really is science backed, and we're going to do it right. So, we consulted, and we had a nephrologist from Fresenius
Oh wow.
that worked with us to develop this meal plan and kind of give us a guide. It started off just for like renal stage 3, 2, and 3.
Okay.
So it was about preventing dialysis in the first place.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that they have a kidney problem until it's in dialysis.
That's right.
Mm.
So
Something we talk
preventing
a
dialysis
we talk a
is
lot about
great.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we can prevent it all we want, but there's an awareness component that sometimes is very lacking, which is introspective. And, you wouldn't know because of your bun ratio, right?
Right.
So you really have to just go out there and take a blood test. Um, and there's a very small slice of the population who's even aware of that. So then from stage 3, it grew to being more encompassing and like, okay, stage 4, you're really on the cusp. So we really have to limit sodium aggressively.
Hmm.
We have to limit protein aggressively. In renal stage 2, we don't have to limit sodium as much. But in stage 4, it's got to be aggressive bicarbonates,
So do you guys
potassium,
do each
phosphorus.
stage like one? Where do you actually plan out? Is it two,
So
three,
yeah,
each
we
stage?
group 2 and 3.
Okay.
So the meals there have a little bit of sodium, not
Hmm.
high sodium by any means, but it's a little bit more than what you would have in pre-dialysis. Um, and then so pre-dialysis really combines the restrictions of dialysis and pre-dialysis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have a low protein, and then we limit like sodium, phosphorus, bicarbonates,
Hmm.
potassium. And we have a complete nutrition label, and a lot of times nutrition labels at the store don't even have a complete nutrition label
Oh
for
yeah.
kidney.
Yeah.
So that's something that we do have. So really, the goal is to just support people that are going through renal health, renal failure, in a very holistic way, and we have all kinds of different plans in different stages, which is actually very unique because you'll be surprised how many people will tell you, "Oh, you're in renal failure. Eat this," and they don't even ask you
Mm.
what your
Which stage?
GFR is.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't even ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, "Here, take this." The most critical thing is differentiating between the stages.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you sent me probably about a week's worth of meals. You also sent Justin a week worth, about a week's worth of meals. Mine were geared towards uh, like low cholesterol, and Justin, they were the stage 5, correct, Justin?
Yep.
Yeah. So I can say that they, one, I'll say two things: delicious, but also I knew I was eating a low cholesterol meal. It was very clear, but I didn't feel like I was. I've Justin, have you eaten a lot of meal prep like prior to that delivery?
This is the second time I've actually tried a meal prep,
Hmm.
so I got a little bit of experience with it.
So what's your what, kind of tell me what your experiences were with meal prep, and I'll share mine as well.
Yeah, yeah. So right when I got the box, I was pretty impressed with the packaging. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm that type of guy. I like to look at like how a business is prepping food, especially like the dry ice and how it was neatly packed and how it was all organized as well.
You made a video
And
about
so
it,
that
didn't
was
you?
nice to see. I did. I posted on TikTok and I had some people comment and was asking about meal prep because I think a lot of other people have tried it, and I think usually with people with dialysis, especially in the very beginning, people they like to try it, and also your energy is kind of low in the very beginning, so people want to see if there's a way to make quick easy meals for the
Yeah.
nights they don't want to cook, and that's kind of like what I thought about with meal pro. I don't eat meal prep like every day, but it's something to where if I'm lazy for the day or if I had like a late night gym session, I'm like, oh, I don't really feel like cooking and cleaning right now. I'll pop in a meal pro, and I think that for me is how it works the best because I like cooking a lot, and I
Yeah.
love. I mean, that's something I've always been into. So I don't want to completely get like a meal pro for every breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but it's a very good way for me to save time. That's
Yeah.
that's the best side of it for me.
Yeah. I've had meal prep at different stages in my life, and although today I may not put the presentation of an athlete, I went through athletic stages in my life to where same thing. It's like, I need to put certain things in my body, and I may not
Hmm.
have the time to do them. I've always worked a lot. When I was really heavily involved in athletics, I worked a lot and did training, which I recently started as well. Justin, Andy, I just started back in couple fighting gyms. My son-in-law, Sovan Kesa Som, is a professional Muay Thai fighter, so he's kind of taking me under his wing. Said, "Dad, you can get it back, right?" So it was kind of perfect timing to get those meals sent to me, and it fit right into the routine. Again, delicious, but I can say that in previous experiences, I I didn't really enjoy the meals, you know, but I actually enjoyed the meals that you sent me. So, thank you again. I think you've got a great service. Um, the luxury and the convenience of having the right things in the right portions is very valuable to whether it's you're an athlete or somebody who needs to watch your cholesterol or somebody who has diabetes, let's say, or somebody that has kidney failure. I'll talk a little bit about this and want to get your guys' take on this. So, Justin, you said you like cooking. Andy, I'm guessing that
Hmm.
that's your main thing, right? is cooking.
Right.
Um, but and I love my wife to death, but I'm gonna say that I don't cook. Uh, so I'll tell you a little story. Maybe Justin, you heard it before. We were dating. She came to my house. She was like, I'm gonna cook for you. She's Filipino. I'm gonna cook for you. And I said, okay. She's like, you got a pot, you got pans, you got chicken, you got rice, you got garlic, you got soy sauce. And I remember at this time, I had just got this new place and I had, the regular restaurant size soy sauce, right? Brand new.
Hmm.
If I would have never married her, Andy, I would still have that same soy sauce bottle. And this is, that was 19 years ago. Uh, so she took the cap off it and dumped the whole thing in the pot. And then she said to me, this is the funny thing. Do you have any more? And I was like, what the hell? Today, if I were to say what's the normal in our house, we've got like a gallon of soy sauce that we go through pretty regularly. We've got a rice
Hmm.
cooker. The rice cooker stays full. Hey, Richard Vanderplas. I think Justin, you've met Richard. Andy, you'll get to know
Hmm.
Richard. He's a nephrology professional, a good friend of mine, big supporter of the podcast. But the portions and the amount of, let's say, sodium, of pork that I eat, of rice that I was eating, it was a freight train. I would have definitely ended up with, and I am, still I'm in jeopardy with that cholesterol level. I would have ended up with high cholesterol levels, which again I did have. Um, Probably diabetes because I've popped up with pre-diabetes at one point in the last probably 10 years, and I've made corrections there as well. But when you come from that to all of a sudden let's make some changes, and in my case they were gradual. Justin, when you found out you had kidney failure, were they drastic or were they gradual changes that you had to make?
I think in the very beginning, I try to make it pretty gradual, just because I
Okay.
felt like I had to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's in your hands with the cooking. So, like, what do you see, Andy, as far as the average client of Meal Pro, the average person that's seeking out meal prep with planning that's specific to their condition? Is it something that they stick with? Do they start and stop? Do they start and stay on it? What are the challenges to kind of helping, empowering people to utilize this as a tool to improving their health?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like comorbidities.
Hmm.
I would say so. It's very common that a person doesn't just have one thing. It's not
That's
just
right.
the kidney failure;
Yeah.
it's also the diabetes
Yeah.
or the pre or insulin resistance. So maybe it's not diabetes, but it's pre-diabetes.
Right.
There's some kind of insulin resistance there.
Hmm.
I mean, that's very common. It's common that they could have high cholesterol, and yeah, I'd say it's a paradigm shift
Yeah.
because chances are, like you said, sometimes your habits, just the way that you approach maybe nutrition. A lot of times you call it a freight train, but yeah, that's what got you there in the first place.
Yeah.
So I definitely acknowledge that the challenge to it all. I like what Justin said about it subsidizes me, so it's not my solution 100% because that would be a pretty big change.
Yeah.
But it's something that when I come home late from the gym, at least I have something to fall back on that I know is not going to set me back.
Yeah.
So that's a very common approach too that I see is there's people that want to make gradual changes. I think drastic changes could be scary, and sometimes when I do a drastic change, I can sustain that person for a day or two,
Mm.
but eventually I'm going to break character,
Right.
and I'm going to binge on something that I've been craving just because my cravings are so high. So I think there's definitely a lot of truth in that gradual change. That we can start gradually. Gradually is better
Mhm.
than nothing, and it can be a meal plan that subsidizes an existing lifestyle,
Yeah.
and it's a shoe in. Like when I come back from the gym, or maybe if I go to church, or
Yeah.
whatever that may be, um,
I
it
I gotta
it could be
admit,
interpreted that way.
I gotta admit, my wife messaged me earlier. She was like, "Let's eat tacos tonight after the podcast." So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to deny that one. We got a question from our friend Richard, and I think it's a good one, for both of you. Um, Justin, I know you hit the produce section quite often, and you make some magic. Andy,
Mhm.
organic and regular products, difference. How do we know they're organic? What is the difference from a health perspective as far as, whether it be fertilizers or additives into the, yeah, I guess into the fertilization of these products? Either of you comment on that?
Well, generally, I mean, when I buy something that's organic for my company, I know exactly the origin.
Hmm.
Like it's usually not just, oh, this is organic. It's usually,
Came
oh,
from
you
here.
know what, this is like Mary's chicken wings, right? Or this
Yeah.
is, it has a very specific name. This is like Salmar Norwegian organic salmon
Hmm.
Atlantic, right? So usually the name is
Mhm.
much longer
Okay.
uh, because it has like the origin and the place that it comes from and the name of the farm, the name of the fishery. And traceability is big on ingredients. At least at
Hmm.
Meal Pro, we're big on ingredient traceability. And I see this a lot where people just say, "Oh, this is organic." It's like, okay, tell me more. What farm is it from? Is it California Delta asparagus from Livingston, or sorry, from like Stockton,
Hmm.
right? Is it a yam from Livingston? So California, so usually a really a true organic ingredient will have a lot of traceability behind it.
Got you.
Um, and then organic really just means no harmful chemicals. There's usually still some chemicals in organic, but it's just not. I think what they mean is there's no bad ones, or less to a lesser extent.
Hmm. How do you
Uh,
manage that, Justin, with the produce section and your selection in meats and fishes and poultry and things? Or do you?
Yeah, I'm still learning. I really do try to get the organic stuff, but sometimes I do get little tricks sometimes where I'm reading the labels and a lot of things nowadays say organic. So sometimes it's hard to believe and trust. I know that's kind of trending where a lot of times a lot of companies are changing the names of things.
Yeah.
But I don't have like a for sure answer. I just try my best to try to make sure that the stuff I do buy, especially like fish as well, I try to do wild caught or I try to make sure it's not and sometimes too, if it's too cheap, I'm just like, wait a minute,
Hmm.
like let me look at this thing. Is it organic or is this farm raised? Why is it so cheap? And lately, for me, what I feel like it's worked is I've been shopping at Sprouts. Um,
Okay.
and to me, I feel like Sprouts is a little bit, has more organic. There's better choices, especially for people like me. I see a lot of dairy-free choices. There's just a little bit more on the health side compared if I went to say Ralph's or if I went to
Yeah.
even Whole Foods. Sometimes I feel like when I go to Sprouts, there's more options for me, and so I
Right.
think that's kind of like the best way. From This is how I do it.
Yeah. Super
and
interesting.
another thing I might add, if I may, Justin, when it
Hmm.
comes to things like a seafood, uh, I also
Hmm.
look at the feed, like what is the diet that they're feeding the salmon, for
Mm.
example. So, like for example, our
Mhm.
salmon, like if we're using Salmar Norwegian organic salmon, it has an aquatic feed,
Okay.
um, and
Mhm.
it's it's a farmed salmon, but it's actually a good way to
Mhm.
let the natural salmon population replenish in the rivers. And they're giving it this aquatic feed, and they're growing it in open ocean pens, right? So the
What does
nets
that
don't
mean,
touch
an
the bottom.
aquatic feed? I'm not familiar with that term.
Aquatic feed is anything in aquaculture, so anything in the ocean. Because when they're raising shrimp, they'll feed
Mm.
it chicken.
Okay. Got it.
They'll just feed it
Mm.
they'll feed it corn,
That's crazy.
right? Just
Chickens eating
because.
chickens too.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The stuff
Oh, yeah,
is
no, chickens will eat anything.
Yeah.
so sometimes going like peeling back the layers and say, okay, well, what is it that makes this organic? Is it like the
Mhm.
diet, like the things that it's eating? Is it like the waterways that it's in, right? So,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
for example, our salmon, it's open ocean, it's in the Baltics, and the nets don't touch the bottom, so there's characteristics to the fish that would give it desirable qualities.
Mm.
So even understanding sometimes what goes into it being organic. Another example that I have about the chicken is, for example, our chicken is air chilled chicken, right? And it's humanely raised, and sometimes people don't understand what that means. But in chicken, what that means is, um, most chicken just goes through like a water bath when it's cooled, so the chlorine penetrates the meat,
Oh.
right? So sometimes it changes the flavor. Like
Mm.
an air chilled chicken would be like the bird is cooled using cold air. So
Okay.
it's just hanging on this type of curtain and it's getting like cold air that goes onto the meat. So it's cooling the bird from the outside in. So it's kind of keeping the moisture locked into that bird. It doesn't really escape. It doesn't get diluted in the chlorine that they put in a water bath. Like if you see a traditional slaughterhouse, when they kind of slaughter these animals, they'll put them in a chlorine water bath, or they'll shock them, and that can change the flavor and the texture of the meat. Whereas if you're getting something that's called more like humanely raised, it might be, the bird might just go to sleep because it's going through, carbon dioxide. They're basically giving it carbon dioxide. So the bird just goes into a gradual sleep.
Mm.
And it's a very humane passing,
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
considering that it's a slaughterhouse, a process of protein. So I would say in terms of organic ingredients, also understanding, and I can go into a whole dissertation about this, about any protein, anything you want, but
I think
uh,
this is super. We had a question about, what needs to change in labeling and these things you're saying. Like you're kind of blowing my mind. I know I don't have a lot of movement in my face, but it's like I didn't know that there was all of this to the the passing, as you said it, of the animal that we're consuming. Is this stuff that I would find in a label, or do I need to be, do I need to know all this stuff? You seem to be a scientist at this. Like, how does the layperson that's navigating kidney failure, high cholesterol, diabetes, inflammatory colitis, whatever it is, how do they navigate all of this?
Yeah, great question. And what I would say, this is kind of a common denominator. Like the way an ingredient, like an animal was raised, or the way a peach was harvested.
Hmm.
So thankfully, at least if you have that as a basis, it'll apply to any condition, regardless of which one you have or what comorbidities you have.
Hmm.
Usually, it's just, again, when they call out the name of a specific farm, uh, that's generally a good sign
Okay.
for like ingredient sourcing, because it's rare for it to be on a label. But usually the farm, you'll know the name of the farm. Salmar salmon, Mary's chicken,
Mhm.
right? You'll know these certifications, and you can associate the certification or like the name of the farm um, with a certain process. So that's super helpful.
I mean, you're
A
kind of
lot of
giving
it
a
don't
hack
feel
to
bad if you
restaurants
don't
right
know.
now. Yeah, like, I can think of a few restaurants that I've been to that, and I wouldn't even say restaurants, more like the kind of fast food type restaurant that they say, our chicken comes from here, our produce comes from here, these sort of things. That almost makes me feel like, with what you're telling me, that if I owned a restaurant, that I could kind of hack the trust of the consumer by just calling that out. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. I'm sure you could, and there might be some malpractice. I'm not saying there's
Yeah,
not malpractice, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I think just, I mean, if you another one is, if you know the industry, you can just taste it, right? Like, you'll taste the difference. Like, if you're eating a Norwegian salmon, or if you're eating an Alaskan salmon, if it's a sockeye salmon, or if it's I mean, you'll taste the difference. You'll know the difference. Like on the YouTube Meal Pro channel, we do like product reviews from
Oh,
ingredients
okay.
standpoint. So I'll be holding two pieces of salmon. I'll be like, this one here is like a Canadian salmon, and this is an Atlantic salmon. And then you can actually see the difference in color, like a Canadian salmon, like Pacific, like a sockeye, would be very different, right? So that's just kind of knowing it,
Hmm.
but it comes from a place of experience, I'd say, um, and doing the research, and sometimes just having a taste test. That could be a huge. That can definitely make a big difference in like how I perceive it, just because I've seen it. If you've never seen it, you can start gradual, right? We were talking about getting into the diet gradually.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like, you'll know by the color, like a heritage pork chop, for example, which would be like a Duroc pig, like Salmon Creek Farms in Idaho. They have like heritage pig breeds.
Hmm.
It's a breed of pig. First of all, you need to understand that it's a different breed.
Okay.
Like, dogs have different breeds.
Hmm.
There's different breeds of salmon. There's
Mhm.
different breeds of cows. There's different breed of pig,
Hmm.
and they all look different.
Yeah,
So that's the first thing. So first, just understanding it on a high level, then can help you make a better decision when you go out and purchase it.
yeah.
Um, I mean, there's like, when it comes to red meats, there's USDA inspectors that they walk around and they actually grade the carcasses of the animals
Mm.
based on marbling and like criteria.
Mm.
So there is an inspector that goes around and grades it. I mean, it's not like a company can just put a certain grade of beef on a label if it's not so, right? So,
Yeah,
I mean, I'd say there are some protections in place.
let's tap into the word purchase for a second, and let me give you a little food for thought. So, nutrition can be affected by financial status, right? And I always ask this question: like, if you had 10 kids and you had $100 a day to feed them, how much would each kid get, right? And it's like, well, $10, right? And say, okay, well, what if one kid ate $30 worth? Well, then the others eat less, right? But also, if you had 10 kids and you wanted to feed them with, let's say, $20, like, what would you buy? You know, I'd ask you to that, and then let's kind of think about what most people do with that in that situation.
Mhm.
What would you buy if you had 10 people to feed and you had $20? Start with you, Justin.
Uh, I think for me, since I mean I'm not as knowledgeable as Andy, but I would just probably just be buying rice and meat if I had to feed people protein and some sort of filling food. That's probably what I would go to. That'd be my go-to.
Mm-hmm. How about you,
Yeah, just
Andy?
like rice, veggies, and protein.
Would that cover it, you think?
Yeah,
$20?
yeah. I mean, I'd say keeping it simple is definitely good. Maybe a few ingredients. I mean, protein tends to be more expensive than like
Yeah.
a other types of food. So starches tend to be shelf stable foods tends to be cheaper. Anything that adds water weight when it cooks,
Mm-hmm.
like a pasta, like a rice,
Yeah.
Mhm.
um, it ends up being like that. It changes the thermic effect of food, right? Because actually, an interesting fact is that there is disproportionate obesity between like how somebody eats. Like 100 calories from carbs or
Yeah.
sugar
Yeah.
looks very different than 100 calories
Yeah.
from protein, because your body requires calories to digest protein.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're eating 100 grams of uh, 100 calories from protein, maybe you're going to require more calories
Spend it.
to digest.
Yeah.
So this is called the thermic effect of food.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it reminds me of exactly this, right? If I'm just eating like sugars or like simple carbs, actually a lot more of those calories go straight into my fat deposits
Yeah.
than if I was eating 100 calories of like produce and protein.
Well, I think that's exactly why I'm asking this is, I had the chance to visit the Philippines, and I'm married to a Filipino, right? I have Filipino children, but I had the first chance to visit there about a year and a half ago, and there's a differentiation in classes there, right? There's the A, B, C, D, right? And the C, D, what they feed and what they eat is going to look a little bit different as far as the protein um, portions, and whether they even get protein in the day. So it's not uncommon to have like a big rice cooker, right? And then put that rice
Mm.
cooker on the table, and then just shovel it on the plate, and get a little bit of broth or a little bit of the sauce and just a tiny bit of protein, right? Do you guys know that in the Philippines there's a 35% incidence of chronic kidney disease? 35%. That's
Mm.
insane,
Yeah, that
isn't
is
it?
high. I think I read something about the Philippines with kidney failure.
Yeah, and that's what they know. When you think about like a CD population, indigent, right? Like that's what they know. How many
Mm.
do they not know about that are just eating things like
Right,
rice
right.
every day, right? So I'm really focused. I want to say hello to my friends in the Philippines, Tuan, and all the people at Oliveras Hospital. We got some things coming up to try and really help in education, empowering, and then providing different sort of therapies to those that actually get to the point of stage 5, which it comes down to dialysis today. In the Philippines, there's a
Hmm.
actually a really low incidence of transplant. But you know, you guys watch Netflix series or anything like that ever? You guys get on there and binge
Yeah, I was actually just watching The Last of Us, and man, that's a good show. I don't know
The
if you guys
Last of
seen
Us.
that.
I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, it's based off a video game, but it's really good. It's on HBO Max, but I think it's on Netflix too.
Yeah. So there's a documentary called Happy Land. Have either of you seen it? Happy
But
Land.
then no.
Check it out. So I'll call it kind of the slums or the more poor neighborhoods, right? There's one called Happy Land, and they went into this slum and really looked at how people live and how they eat, and where they get their food from. Have either of you heard of a meal or a delicacy called pag pag?
No, I have
And
not.
isn't that recycled food that they find in the trash and then they recook it?
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I've
It
eaten
is.
that.
It's have you heard of
No, just kidding. I
Jollibee?
didn't eat that, but
Jollibee?
yeah, 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 Jollibee. Yeah,
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 so
yeah, yeah.
Kentucky Fried Chicken, like, people love fried chicken in the
Mm,
Philippines, right? And every day people will go through those garbage and collect, what is to the eye still edible, but hasn't been
Hmm.
finished on the plate. They'll take it. You talked about different sort of methods of washing, Andy. They'll rinse it in 3 baths of water, and then they'll repurpose it. They'll cook it again, and put a bunch of flavor on it, make it into adobo, refry it, make it just a fried chicken again. And man, I cannot imagine how many people that's their source of protein every single day. So when we talk about purchasing and you know it's easier to get a big meal and kind of satisfied to your stomach with rice and pastas and things like this. Even in, again, and I'm saying this respectfully, like the slums of a country like the Philippines, they see the value and the importance of that protein intake. So definitely check that out, Happy Land. It's a super insightful documentary. I don't know if anybody that's with us has seen that. So Andy, what do you see in taking on this sort of tool, this sort of subsidization? Justin, same question. To go
Mm.
towards a meal planning. First of all, having skilled chefs that are actually putting knowledge into what's on this plate or in this care package, right? Um,
Hmm.
how important is it? What are your approaches towards making this available to people, Andy, that really need it, but may not have the resources, or are there resources to kind of subsidize their procurement of that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's work in progress at the moment. I mean, we're open to working with like insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
We're open to working with, if you have a flexible spending account,
Mm-hmm.
we're open to, donating. I mean, Meals on Wheels. We're open. I'd say we're open.
Hmm.
So far, we've been just in the kitchen every single day, and that's doing what we do best, which is just making food. That's what we do. We try out all kinds of ingredients. We buy all the pork chops. We buy all the salmon from everywhere. We try to make it, and we try to make it in different ways. And so far, that's definitely been our forte. And that's hopefully that's people see value in that, and then combining it in a way where it's still good for renal failure. One of the things that we do sometimes is like we'll combine just different textures and different flavor profiles into a meal. So it might come across as a really simple meal, but then at the same time, like you're eating it and you're like, oh man, like these peas, like steamed peas with squash, it's like two very different textures.
Mm-hmm.
When you're eating them, it still packs a flavor punch just because a squash, like a summer squash, will be it's just such a different texture for something like a green pea
Yeah.
or or like a brown rice. So combining like a lot of different ingredients together could be a good way to like really excite your taste buds.
Is that
Um,
me or who is that? I hear a beeping, like
Sorry,
cable
that's
getting.
me. That's my charger that keeps
Okay. I
coming.
was like, what is that?
I tried plugging it back in, but I think it's yeah, it's acting up at the moment. So I apologize.
Well, let's ask the audience, because I think we still got Richard with us, and I see Tina. I think Tina is the person who reached out to us, if I'm not mistaken. Hi, Tina. Um, you know, in that regard, and appreciate the transparency there, Andy. The openness to work in, like, what are the tools that somebody who really needs this, and CKD5, or the need for dialysis, I'll just say it that way, um, is an entitled Medicare beneficiary. There's insurance in play for these people. Are there tools that one can find, whether it be through an insurance plan or a supplemental insurance plan or a foundation, something along these lines, to where, I mean, let's just face it, eating healthy can be difficult and costly in some cases. And if I'm that, let's say, type 2 diabetic that has been eating, rice and starches as my main source of substance to the meal, I might find it easier to just go do that with the small amount of money that I have, versus kind of finding a way to complete, a plate method type of of meal. Is that safe to say the plate method, Andy? Is that kind of the way you guys think about it?
Yeah, I mean, the way we think about it is usually once you already have insulin resistance, so it would be anything that doesn't spike your blood sugar. But yeah, I think you could definitely. I mean, it's fair to say it's maybe a more balanced meal.
Yeah.
Um,
Have you seen
yeah,
anything
I
like
mean,
that, Justin?
we-
With any of
Oh,
on any of your visits to dialysis centers or to nephrologists, have you seen other people with chronic kidney disease that have found ways to kind of subsidize their meals in regards to
Not that I know of. I don't think. I'm sure it exists. I know there's a lot of nonprofits that try, like especially the smaller ones. I've
hmm
seen a lot of people try to work with other local vendors and local chefs, kind of do the same thing that Andy's doing.
yeah.
I'm not really sure if they've done something where they're able to be shipped though. That's pretty unique, and I feel like that's kind of more
Yeah.
of a luxury thing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're in Northern California and they got it to us here in Southern California, right? But I mean, I'd really love
Hmm.
to help in in that journey, Andy, to maybe find some of the networks, find some synergies that can assist you in that openness to find a way to where it can kind of hit the streets, if that's a safe way of saying it. A lot of the people who have type 2 diabetes, who have hypertension, I mean, let's just be open about this. Um, and please, everybody who's watching, understand that this word is coming out of respect and out of dense populations, urban areas, right? Where we see a lot of Hispanic, a lot of Latino, a lot of Pacific Islander and Asian Americans. Um, they're the hardest hit. And quite often that is result of the environment. That is a result of, health literacy, education, average household income, access to, I mean, Justin, you said sprouts. Like, are you
Hmm.
familiar? Let's go to Northern California. So I know you know Oakland area, right, Andy?
yep.
So what's a more prominent area in Northern California? Would it be like Emeryville or something like that, or?
Yeah, I mean, Emeryville is geographically close to Oakland.
Hmm.
By prominent, you mean like more like densely populated, or
I would say more like, let's say a higher average household income, high school graduation rates, things like this. What would be a more like a higher demographic in the Northern California area?
like anything Silicon Valley?
Oh, that's right. So what is that? San Jose, right? Yeah, I was just there a
Yeah,
couple
for
weeks ago.
example, yeah.
All right, so tell me, do you see a lot of Sprouts and a lot of Trader Joe's in Oakland, or Whole Foods or things like this in Oakland, or do you see more in like the San Jose area?
To be fair, I don't go past like drive through Oakland a lot,
Mm-hmm.
so it wouldn't be like a first hand account.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine there'd be more in like in maybe like Cupertino, San Jose.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would imagine
Mm,
clustered in that area.
Yeah. Justin, what about like let's say like an area like Watts here in Los
hmm.
Angeles, right? Or Irvine. Where would you see more of these sort of resources for these very healthy, the organic selections, things like this? Would it be in Watts or would it be in Irvine?
Oh, most likely Irvine for sure.
Most
I
likely
think
Irvine.
people that live in those type of areas say like if you're in South Central, a lot of spots there's and they've even said this before. A lot of these nicer, higher end, healthier grocery stores, they're in more of a predominantly more white or more Asian areas just because they have the funds usually and they have the
Right.
more the knowledge
Right.
for these type of foods because I feel like and I live in East LA in Boyle Heights. I'm predominantly more Hispanic too. And usually in these areas, it's really hard to do grocery shopping anyways
Yeah.
because first of all, you get food for less. You get
Yeah.
you get all these other what's that another food for less and there's food or something all these really cheap grocery stores
Yeah.
anyways. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you're gonna get a lot of that in these areas, and the the organic section in these areas are pretty bad. Like I rarely even I actually never get meat here, to be honest, in my
Oh,
side
really?
of town.
And you're in
Yeah,
LA, right?
in LA. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hi, Nati, and Tina has confirmed that there is Sprouts in in Oakland. Again, same with
Oh,
all due
nice,
respect,
nice.
but I think the demographic and the environment that we grow up in, I talked about the freight train earlier, right? Certain parts of, like I live in Lakewood, but right around my neighborhood or my city, there's, probably 5 cities that are small cities and they're drastically different. And in some cities, you'll see, just this cascade of fast food after fast food after fast food, liquor store, these sort of things, right? Uh, are you coming in on a different link, Andy?
Guys, I got this laptop that keeps the charger keeps cutting in and out.
All right, so we're gonna switch.
Mm.
I'm going to switch devices if
All
that's
right,
okay with you.
no problem. Let me just bring that in, bring this out, and we're back. Yeah, so it's very common to see kind of the convenience and the poor choices. Oh, we got a lot of echo, Andy. Let me see if I can make any. That sounds better. We lost the feedback. Can you hear us okay, Andy?
I can. Can
All
you?
right, so you're muted in and out.
Yep.
All right. So again, you know, looking in different cities. I mean, Long Beach is a great example. You go from one neighborhood to the next, one block to the next in Long Beach, and you'll see a completely different demographic. You've been through there, Justin, recently?
Mhm. Oh yeah, yeah, Long Beach. Yeah. Not recently, but probably about Oh, actually, at the art show was the last time I went to Long
That's right.
Beach.
Yeah, big city,
Hmm.
and one block to the next is a completely different demographic, right? So it's easy to
Hmm.
kind of fall into that freight train. The environment, the behaviors that would really lead to some of the things we're talking about tonight: high cholesterol, obesity, high blood pressure with high sodium intake, type 2 diabetes from different sort of sugars and high carb meals. Have you guys seen this guy on social media that goes and stands in like fast food restaurant lines and he'll pay people $100 to not eat there?
Yeah, Santa Cruz.
Yeah, that's what it's, yeah, Santa Cruz Medical Center or something like that.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah, I
seen this,
like that
Andy?
guy. I like.
No, I wasn't aware of it. Sounds
I mean,
interesting.
yeah, it's crazy. He'll stand in like
Yeah.
McDonald's lines, and surprisingly, not everybody takes the $100.
Hmm.
Some people are like, no, I'm gonna eat my McDonald's, or I know he went to Crumbles, and I'm not bashing any of these organizations, but I can definitely be a proponent of trying to be healthier, trying to manage diseases that a lot of times we do know we have, and a lot of times we don't know we have. And you brought it out that a large percentage of people that have type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure, they don't know it. You know what?
Hmm.
Cholesterol as well, because I would have never guessed that. And if I didn't have like this issue where a PA ordered my blood test and then, came back and said, hey, we need to put you on medication. I wasn't going to accept
Hmm.
that. I talked to my doctor first and she was like, hey, make changes that you can make and we're going to check again in a quarter. And, some of the things I did that were pretty drastic for me, but also they are manageable. You mentioned a lot of fish, Andy, uh, and Justin, you mentioned fish. So there's something to fish as far as the
Hmm.
protein intake. Can you speak to that at all? Like why fish? Why is
Hmm.
that a good choice, or maybe a better choice, or something that you should bring into the mix of your protein intake?
Hmm. Yeah, I think for me, I'm always kind of experimenting with myself to see what I feel better and what I don't. It's pretty much just everybody's different, so it's hard for me to tell someone to only eat red meat or don't eat red meat. But I think for me, especially going through dialysis, obviously you need a lot of protein because the machine is taking out the protein out of my body. So I do try to replenish with enough protein, and I think fish, for some reason, for me, is like a cleaner protein. I feel like I digest it better. I feel
Hmm.
like I take it in a lot better than, say, if I just went and got a steak every night. Which I don't know. I feel like if you were to eat steak all the time, your body's pretty might be used to it, and you're able to filter it out. But I think for me, I like to eat fish because it's cleaner. It's more lean protein to me, and I just don't feel as disgusted or just eating. It's like eating Korean barbecue all the time. Like I just can't do that.
Yeah, it gives you like a weighed down, or yeah, it gives you a feeling, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Andy, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I'd say it's great to just have variety. And fish is such a broad term. Some fish is, I mean, it's great. It's always good in moderation. Depending about where it's caught, it can be loaded with mercury in some cases.
Mm.
So they can be great fish. Like for example, like we have a tilapia, which is a sushi grade
Really?
tilapia.
Hmm.
So sushi grade is like you can eat that raw. You don't even have to cook it. Like that's how good that meat is.
Yeah.
And then other times you're getting stuff that you're. I think it's great to be cautious with seafood because seafood it can be, like you said, Justin. It can be a lean protein. It can be clean. It can be really good. Low cholesterol. It can have all these benefits. But at the same time, there's lots that can go wrong with it. So it's one of those where
Hmm.
just having it from a good source, having it and mixing it up, maybe going salmon one day, then you do crab the next, or you can do a swordfish, a tilapia, prawns. The U.S. makes very little seafood. There's very little seafood in the U.S. Like the salmon is Canadian, Norwegian. The shrimp. There's very little shrimp in the United States. It can be Argentinian. It can be from the Indian Ocean. The tilapia comes from the other side of the Pacific.
Mm.
There's a lot of seafood that comes like in South America, but the United States actually does very very little seafood. A lot of it is imported, so a lot of times it'll be an imported protein. So um, yeah, just make sure it comes from a good source. There's some local like rock cod that's pulled off the coast of the San Francisco Bay, and then we follow it up the coast throughout the year.
Mm.
So there's definitely is some local seafood. There's always an exception. Like um, swordfish is usually caught very far off coast. So
What about clams? Like,
there's always a very uniqueness
oh,
to
sorry, not
to
clams. What
seafood.
about oysters? I really like oysters, and somebody told me to don't eat too many of those. But
Yeah, they
like,
filter water. That's what they do. Oysters filter like up to 50 gallons of water per day.
wow.
Um,
So they got a
so
bunch of crap in them.
there can be a bunch of crap in them. So you want to get them from the right source. So I think we were talking about ingredient traceability earlier. I know you said you go
Hmm.
to a restaurant that calls out the ingredients,
Hmm.
and in beef, usually cattle is less of a wild card than seafood. But in seafood, definitely want to be very aware of where it comes from, more aware, I should say. Um, and then remember that cattle, it was usually it's been bred for hundreds of years to have certain characteristics.
Yeah.
So usually the cattle, the beef, like the beef with more fat is more desirable.
Hmm.
So actually, the higher grades
Hmm.
of beef, like the wagyu beef, is one that has like the most fat, the most cholesterol, and usually that's considered a desirable trait when there's a lot of fat in a cow.
Yeah.
So
Somebody
which is
mentioned
very
Kobe
different
meat.
from seafood, right? Because seafood isn't like that at all.
Is that Kobe
Hmm.
meat and Wagyu the same?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
American Kobe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, and
Andrew, you're
yeah.
teaching
So
me so much, man. I think you're teaching everybody so much here. Um,
Hmm.
something pops in my head when we talk about cattle and protein, and you talked about the filtering water, but years ago we had this mad cow disease, right? And then more recently we've had the African swine flu with the pigs, right? Uh,
Hmm.
like anything that you can say in regard to the caution that we take with our protein intake that perhaps we should absolutely be avoiding.
you can go. You used to be able to go to. I don't know if you still can sign up for that, but there'll be like a recall list um, on the FDA website,
Hmm.
and you'll get email notifications. And if you sign up, I get no email notifications like every day almost. It seems like there's always
Mm.
some recall happening somewhere. But there is a government website that actually you can subscribe to that would give you a list of like everything that's
Yeah,
like a
watch
push
out for.
notification of all the current events.
Yeah.
If you care for that. Otherwise, hopefully your food, I mean, for us, like we keep a thumb on, like an eye on it routinely. And we're pretty specific about how we source ingredients. So if you're not the expert, hopefully you're relying on people that are experts that
Yeah.
can feed you the right items and
Hmm.
bring the right items to your table.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, hey guys, it's
Oh,
been a
Andy. I have something to tell Andy. I actually just had the tilapia dish the other day, and I was wondering, I use my own rice because for some reason when I warmed up the rice kind of became hard. So I was just gonna ask you, what kind of tips? I mean, do you put water and then microwave on the rice, or is there anything that you guys do in order to get that kind of like fresh rice like feel or taste?
So, so did you put it in there with the plastic?
Yeah, I just took it out of the freezer and just put it on. I didn't take off that front or the plastic cover off.
Okay, yeah. So what we recommend is that you'll puncture the film,
Hmm.
but keep
With
it
like a
on there. So
fork.
yeah, with a fork, and then
Okay.
you heat 2 minutes at a time, and you stir. So that
Oh,
way,
gotcha.
that your
uh,
edges would be about as cooked as the middle piece,
yeah.
right? Because
Mm.
otherwise your edges would get hard, and then the middle one, especially from frozen, is even more challenging because from frozen you're like, if it was already thawed, it would heat more even. Um, but if you're doing it from
Oh,
frozen, then I
yeah.
definitely recommend like stirring it just so it's evenly being heated. The nukes are hitting it about the same. Otherwise, it'd be common to have like maybe like right around the borders, it'd be hard, and then in the
Hmm.
middle it'd be cold, right? So
Gotcha.
yeah, what I
Okay.
recommend doing is just like stirring it. Yeah, but that's a basmati brown rice. It's from the foothills of the Himalayas, so that's
Hmm.
imported from India. But
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I did.
it's a brown rice. We have other types of rice. We have long grain basmati rice. We have the different varieties of rice. I believe in the tilapia in your specific meal, it would have been
Hmm.
was it yellow peppers that it came with as the vegetable?
Um, I don't think I had the yellow peppers. I think it was just the
Was it
rice
green?
and the
Sauteed green
fish.
beans?
Oh, yes, green beans. Yes, yes, yes. That's what I
Green
had.
beans. Okay. Yeah, then it would have still been the brown rice. Um, yeah, then we have just in case somebody's diabetic, so we have that complex carb that doesn't spike the insulin.
Justin's
Yeah,
battery must have died as well.
I
I
think
want
so.
to I want to take a few minutes, Andy, before we jump off, and with both of you, you know, aside from all the health stuff we talk about, all the illness, all the treatments, all the management, I love to hear the story of entrepreneurs. So could you kind of share with us the you mentioned the study, but I know my team, they kind of shared a little bit about how you actually got started in the entrepreneurship, navigating that whole journey, bootstrapping, all of that stuff. Can you share a little bit? Because I really like to allow the audience to have inspiration on, when you have a passion for something, when you have the education for something, especially when it's empowering people, like you get it done, right? And that's my story. I've shared it a lot of times of starting educational programs and different businesses. But I'd love to hear from you before Meal Pro. Like, how did the whole thing come about that Andy Sartori is like an entrepreneur, somebody that's going to start business and make it happen?
Yeah, well, it's well, first of all, it's a journey that spans about a decade. So even though Meal Pro the company was really just born in maybe 2017,
Hmm.
end of 2017, beginning 2018, it started long before that, right? Because I had a passion about food, so I was working in insurance, but I left my job to get a job at like Panda Express. Um, and I applied to a bunch of like fast food places just to see what it was like to run a restaurant. I
Hmm.
got rejected by almost all of them except for Panda Express. So I worked at Panda. I was behind the walk, and I cut the vegetable, and I went through the whole training program.
Hmm.
So that's where I started, and then I became an assistant manager at that place. I was about to get the general manager job, but I pursued a different opportunity for like a different restaurant chain at that point. Um, it was called Specialties Cafe and Bakery, and they had like a Pete's Coffee inside. So it was like two restaurants inside of one type thing.
Yeah.
So that was step one, right? It was like leaving the insurance job and actually like learning from the ground up, like what it was like to actually run like a food establishment. And then step two was okay. Now I have to make something happen. So I bought like a post office van. I wanted to do a restaurant, but I didn't have the funds to do it. But I could do a food truck. And then I realized, well, maybe I can't do a food truck, but at least I can do a beverage truck.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it was. So then it was phases. I bought like a U.S. post office van. That was phase one. And then with my next paycheck, I put a sink in it. That was phase two. And I kind of built it. It took me like a year to build this food truck, paycheck by paycheck. Then I finally built this thing and I realized, okay, how do I get people to come now? How do I get them to shop
Mm-hmm.
at my food truck, right?
That's
So
the
now I
question,
have
right? That's the difficult part.
yeah, and then it was like, okay, now I have to like, okay, go back to school. How do I build a website? How do I do a Facebook pixel? How do I, drive traffic? What is SEO?
Yeah.
And I became really good at like building websites, and so I kept getting job offers in Silicon Valley, right? So I ended up at a cybersecurity company as like a marketing expert,
Wow.
uh, and I actually ended up in cybersecurity. I worked at a company called Qterra.
Okay.
It's on the stock market. It's publicly listed. It does
Mm-hmm.
cosmetic lasers.
Okay.
Um, and then I went to like a cybersecurity company, which is like the destination job. I mean, everybody wants to be in cybersecurity.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the best of the best went there. So I ended up there because I tried to build a food truck and have people visit my food truck. So I learned, how to drive traffic, and
Yep.
and I got so good that in my job interviews, I would tell them, I'd be like, listen, this is how I got people to come, and this is the campaign that I ran, and I got this in front of this many eyeballs, and then it actually resulted in sales, and I had the full circle like interview, and I'd show them how they did it. They're like, oh, this is amazing, this is great. You
Yeah.
come do it for us, we'll hire you. And so I did. And then, by the way, I actually was good. It wasn't just hot air. So then, actually, it ended up all working, right? So then
Right.
I ended up like, okay, now I have a website. I know how to sell the product. I know how to make it because of my days at Panda Express
Yep.
and my days at Specialties and Peace Coffee, right? And the whole like, this is how you run a restaurant. And I married the two, and I made mealpro.com. Um, and that's kind of like I guess a quick summary of how it happened. And
That's
then
really
Meal Pro,
awesome.
like I can go into its own a story of its own about how we went from $0 to over 1 million meals.
That's
But
awesome.
that's
Wow.
Yeah. That's insane. I mean, that's exactly what I was looking for. Andy is, super humble and very transparent with us. It's you know, who 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 does that sort of stuff? Like leaves a steady job, picks up tools that never had before, and learns from the ground up. Uh, That's an entrepreneur, and I'm really impressed with what you're doing. I think it's got what did you call it? The eating with purpose.
eating with purpose. That's right.
Yeah, and I think we all need purpose in our life, professionally, spiritually, within our family. I applaud what you're doing, and I look forward to seeing you grow. Justin, give us a little
Thanks.
background on you. I know you're an entrepreneur. It's in spirit as well. Give us a little bit background in that regard, because I don't know if we've talked a whole lot about that in previous episodes, but um, really smart guy, and I think some of this you guys probably have some synergies in some of the things you do there. But give us a little background on the
Hmm.
entrepreneurship side.
Yeah, it's very similar. I think now with the internet, that's kind of what I've done in the past too. Is I've done a lot of stuff building websites, building e-commerce, and doing the whole Amazon FBA stuff as well in the past, and
Hmm.
kind of just doing different projects and stuff like that. And yeah, so I've been doing that for a long time as well, and building a jewelry store with some friends as well, and and constantly, keeping up with the trends of, what's new in marketing, what's new, moving everything to, what's the new Amazon, basically TikTok shop. How can you build TikTok shop and stuff like that. So I'm pretty tapped into that world, and I've always, you know, and since my kidney failure, I've been in and out of, creating projects and sustaining things like that. But I figure, these days that's like one of the best ways to make money is pretty much online money.
Yeah.
And I've kind of kept on doing that for a while. And even now, I mean, that's pretty much how I make most of my money is just online money.
Yeah.
And, I think what Andy's doing is cool too, because if once you mix those 2 as well, as you put real life products
Yep.
and then you connect them through the internet using, his marketing skills, putting that together is one of the best combos to create, good business. And since he's young, I feel like he's got a lot of knowledge on just how to mix those 2. And I feel like a lot of chefs, might be a chef and then doesn't know how to run a business and how to market themselves.
Yeah.
And it seems like Andy, from going to zero to, a million meals. I mean, that's amazing. That's all through marketing and the SEO he's talking about, and
Agreed.
everything he's learned in the past. So,
Yeah.
congrats for that. That's hard to do.
I'm taking notes, guys. Honestly,
Yeah, thank you.
Andy, I want to give you both a chance as well to kind of make sure we understand your websites as well as your social handles. Justin, can you kind of shout out the main handles that you're using, the main social platforms you're using?
Yeah. So on TikTok, it is Platinum Kidney, and that's pretty much that's my most active account,
I need
which
to
is on
mute off for
TikTok.
1 second. Is yours muted? Yeah, we're getting a lot of feedback.
Oh,
You hearing that too, Justin?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
There's a lot of echo. Yeah. So my main account that I use for, especially with my kidney dialysis stuff, is Platinum Kidney, which is on TikTok, and I do have an Instagram, which is the same handle as Platinum Kidney as well. But I usually, like I said, I mainly just use the Platinum Kidney on TikTok, and
Yeah.
then my personal is just my name, Justin Pham, with 2 P's.
Yeah. And just to share my knowledge of what Justin's doing, everything that we do, it adds up, and we find a place for it, right? So you've managed to make your livelihood out of all of the online type of skills that you've got, but this guy is helping, I can't say how many, but probably millions of people to learn about chronic kidney disease, because I see the views that you get, Justin. They're in the millions, right? Many of
Mm.
your postings.
Some of them, yeah. I got a
Yeah.
couple viral videos. Yep.
Yeah, and people are asking him questions. They're supporting him. They're going through the daily with him. Everything from making a fruit salad every night to going to the gym and doing some Muay Thai practice to, you know, even the treatment. In some cases, you'll post about what the day in the life is of going
Hmm.
on PD. Having the 10 hours, right? 10-hour treatment,
Yep. 10 hours.
and then coming off it in the morning. So I applaud the way that you're able to take all these life skills, all these nuances of finding how to generate a livelihood, and then now you're turning it into advocacy, which it's just helping people, man. And I love you for
Hmm.
that, brother. I really do, man. That
Thank
keep
you.
up the
Thank
good
you.
work.
Appreciate it.
Andy, share with us the website, which I think has been posted by Tina in the chat as well. But tell us the website, the socials. How do we make sure that we stay a family here?
Yeah, it's mealpro.com, and social media handles are just meal pro, like the pros at doing food meals. So meal pro,
Okay.
singular, and it's a light bulb with a fork, like we're eating smart
Yeah.
and we're eating with purpose.
Yeah. That's great. Everybody who's listening with us today, I got to tell you that, as always, uh, intersubjectivity. I'm changed today as a result of this conversation. I hope you guys are too. That you're able to find, traceability, to find subsidy to navigating the specific disease that you have. That maybe you've been inspired by two young entrepreneurs. That, by the way, guys, 33. You guys are so far ahead, so far ahead. You got a long time. I'm 47, and I started a business in 2009, my first business. So, 16, 15 years ago. Yeah, about little over 15 years ago. Uh, so much has happened since then. And, you're only 33. So I just can't imagine what potentials you guys are going to reach in your advocacy for others, your entrepreneurial endeavors. I'm looking forward to seeing you grow and hopefully having you back on. And Andy, when you're in Southern California or we're in Northern California, hopefully we can get together and find a place where we can trace what we're eating or, have a home cooked meal. If you come down here, my wife will cook you a bunch of soy sauce. She'll dump us a bunch of soy. By the way, she's a great cook, so I'm not knocking that. I love her cooking. We just had to make some changes. So again, thank you both for coming in tonight. Any last words for the audience, either of you?
Oh, I was just gonna say, after talking to Andy, I like Meal Pro a lot better now. Once you get to meet the owners and stuff like that. So when I'm eating, I'm just gonna think, oh, okay, you put a lot of work into this.
Yeah, yeah,
So it was good to talk to him and meet
yeah.
him.
Now it's home. Now it's home
Great
cooking,
meeting
right?
you.
It's not a meal prep. It's a meal prep meal.
Yeah, now it feels like
It's a
a
home
home
cooked
cooked
meal.
meal now from Andy. So I'm
Yep,
like, okay.
yep. Thanks again, guys. Musings with Morales, signing out, and look forward to the next one. Take care.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
thank you guys.